My wife asked for a trial separation, but when I took her request seriously, she didn't expect me to turn our marriage into a test she couldn't control. What happened next left her begging for a second chance. This revelation hit her visibly hard. What she had framed as a harmless exercise suddenly carried potential legal ramifications she hadn't considered. This was never about breaking up, she whispered desperately. Then what was it about? Testing how much I would tolerate. Seeing if I would beg you to stay. Understanding what manipulation tactics work best on me. My tone remained steady, but my words cut with surgical precision. She had no response to this. The true nature of her experiment, whether conscious or unconscious, had been exposed. The attorney will email me some paperwork later today, I continued. Not divorce papers, but a post-nuptial agreement that protects both our interests, should you decide to reassess our relationship again in the future. A post-nuptial agreement. Shock registered in her voice. You can't be serious, completely serious. If our marriage continues after this week, it will be with clear boundaries and consequences for breaching them. Rising from my seated position, I checked my watch pointedly. I have a video conference in 10 minutes. Your time in the common area begins at noon. As she gathered the rejected breakfast tray, I added one final thought. By the way, I've cancelled our joint credit cards for the duration of the separation. Since we're living separate lives, it seemed appropriate to separate finances temporarily as well. I've left cash on the counter for your expenses. She stood frozen, the full weight of the situation finally sinking in. This wasn't just about rearranged furniture or blocked social media. This was about the fundamental trust and structure of our marriage being systematically dismantled. All triggered by her casual suggestion to live separately for a week. Day 4 of 7, I reminded her as I turned back to my laptop. We're only halfway through your experiment. After she left, I heard muffled crying from the guest room. I didn't feel joy at her distress, but I did feel vindicated. Sometimes the most valuable lessons come through difficult consequences. And she was learning day by day exactly what she stood to lose with her careless treatment of our marriage. The 5th day of our separation began with an unexpected silence. My wife had left early without the usual sounds of her morning routine filtering through the apartment. The note on the kitchen counter simply read, taking a personal day. Need time to think. I proceeded with my day as planned. Heading to work with a sense of calculated detachment. The postnuptial agreement had arrived in my email as scheduled. Its legal language spelling out clear terms for any future separation or divorce. I forwarded it to her work email with the subject line, for your review. Day 5. Throughout the day, colleagues noticed my changed demeanor. You seem different, my team leader commented during lunch. More focused, more decisive. Just gaining clarity on some personal matters, I replied, realizing it was true. This separation had indeed brought clarity, not about whether I wanted the marriage, but about what kind of marriage I was willing to accept. I returned home earlier than usual, planning to use the empty apartment to finalize some work projects. As I approached the door, I heard it, the sound of keys frantically jiggling in the lock. Then came frustrated pounding. Open the door. Her voice, tight with panic and anger, carried down the hallway. I walked calmly toward the commotion, watching as she turned at the sound of my footsteps. Her hair was disheveled, eyes red from crying. My key doesn't work, she stated accusingly, holding up her keychain. I had the locks changed yesterday afternoon, I responded matter-of-factly. Separate lives, separate security. I left a message with your sister about it. You changed the locks on our apartment. Her voice rose in disbelief. You can't just lock me out of my own home. I raised an eyebrow. Is it your home this week? According to your experiment, we're living separate lives. I'm simply creating the appropriate boundaries. Neighbors' doors cracked open at the commotion. She noticed immediately, lowering her voice. Let me in, we need to talk. I unlocked the door and stepped aside. As she rushed past me into the apartment, the wave of her familiar perfume brought an unexpected pang of nostalgia. For a moment, just a moment, I felt the weight of what we were risking. Then I remembered how easily she had suggested dismantling everything we'd built. Inside, she turned to face me, composure crumbling. The postnuptial agreement, really? It's not punishment, I corrected her. It's protection for both of us. This has gone too far, she insisted, gesturing wildly at the transformed apartment. I've learned my lesson. Okay, I made a terrible mistake listening to my divorced friends. I never should have suggested this separation. Can we please just stop this now? I observed her carefully, the desperation in her eyes, the trembling hands. This wasn't an act. She was genuinely afraid of losing everything. We can discuss ending the experiment, I said finally, but not without conditions. Hope flickered across her face. Anything, just tell me. First, you sign the postnuptial agreement, I stated firmly. It stipulates that any future separation initiated by either party without mutual agreement results in financial consequences. She swallowed hard but nodded. Second, we begin couples therapy, not with friends giving advice, not with self-help books, but with a licensed professional. Another nod, more vigorous this time. Third, I continued, maintaining unwavering eye contact. You explain to everyone who heard about this experiment exactly what happened, that it was your suggestion, that it backfired, and that you regret it. No more manipulating the narrative. This condition visibly pained her. But after a moment's hesitation, she agreed. And finally, I said, stepping closer, understand that trust has been broken. Not beyond repair, but significantly damaged. Rebuilding it will take time and consistent effort on your part. Tears slid down her cheeks as she whispered, I never meant to hurt us like this. Intent doesn't change impact, I repeated my earlier words. You casually suggested breaking the foundation of our marriage. Actions have consequences. She moved toward me, arms extending for an embrace. I stepped back slightly, not rejecting, but not yet accepting. The experiment continues until all conditions are met, I stated. The locks stay changed. The schedules remain in effect, and you continue staying in the guest room. When the postnuptial is signed, and the other conditions are in progress, then we can discuss ending this early. Disappointment crossed her features, but she didn't argue. The power dynamic had shifted irrevocably. Where once she had felt entitled to test our relationship on a whim, she now understood that access to my life was a privilege, not a right. I'll sign it tonight, she said quietly. And I'll call a therapist tomorrow morning. I nodded, checking my watch. According to our schedule, the common areas are yours for the next 2 hours. I'll be in my office. As I turned to leave, she called after me. Do you still love me? I paused at the doorway, considering the question carefully. Love was never the issue, I replied honestly. Respect is, and we're working on rebuilding that.